You know, like, how did I bring that all the way in and not notice it?
Also, does your
Okay, now that I see all those who are going to attend that are there, I will call the meeting to order. This is Ron Stega, supervisor. I am here virtually because of health issues. I plan on being hopefully at the August meetings in person. In the meantime, I'm here at home virtually. So with that, we will call the meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. For all those who are able, please stand, face the flag, and we will say our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I would ask our clerk to call the roll.
All right, Supervisor Stega?
I'm here, virtually.
Clerk Guthrie is here. Treasurer DeShane?
Present. Trustee Jackson?
Trustee Jackson? Here.
Trustee Opsimer? Trustee
Trustee
Sumlin?
Osmer was called away last minute and will not be here today.
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. And Trustee Wazinski?
Here.
All right, we have 6 board members present tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. We now go to our presentations, and this is a wonderful presentation. I wish I was there to do it myself, but I understand our treasurer, who has been very much involved with this program through his other roles in a different life as a Kiwanian, knows all about it. We have a group of students that are HASLETT and Okama students who are involved with robotics, and they deserve recognition, and Mr. Steve SNEED is here with them. Mr. DeShane, you want to take this over?
I would be glad to. I am going to read the Certificate of Achievement presented tonight to the HASLETT Robotics Club. Congratulations to the HASLETT Robotics Club on your success persevering through the COVID pandemic and competing at the state and world tournament level. I understand 2 of your teams have made it to the world competition and been successful, and we'd like to know more about the club and your successes. And I see you've even brought some of your robots that you built. Fantastic. Mr. Steve, would you come forward and introduce the club members and tell us about your recent achievements?
Sure. How much time do I have?
Okay. 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, we'll take a full 10 minutes. Thank you. My name is Steve SNEED. I am the president of the HASLETT Robotics Club. If I can introduce the teams, we have 2 of them. 2 teams, try not to be confused. They're both called the Zesty Mustaches. So we have Sartaj, Ian, and Ilaria. So let me give you a brief history of the club. We had the opportunity to speak, I think, 2 or 3 years ago, but I'd like to give you an update, if you don't mind. And then I'm going to tell you the awesome story of these 2 teams and let them talk and show things off a bit. So we are the HASLETT Robotics Club. We are a club of kids and coaches who are interested in STEM through the use of robotics. We compete with robotics competitions. We've been around since 2008 in the old Meridian Alternative High School, I believe it was called. We started with just 10 kids, I think, and there was 2 teams. Even at that point, we had girls in our mix. That's one of our goals, to make sure we use STEM and robotics to get girls interested in those fields. Flash forward to 2014, some of those kids actually were in high school and advanced to the World Championship and took home the Excellence Awards. The Excellence Award is the award that judges will give a team, recognizes them as being most well-rounded, best performing, best, not necessarily best performing, but well-rounded, excuse me. They perform well, they present themselves well, they work well as a team. That is considered to be the winning team for the competition. There was 427, I believe. At that, so basically we were considered, Nick over there was considered, and his team was considered to be world champions that year. Flash forward to 2019, 2020, our seasons actually go sometimes 8 months if you're a successful team. That was our last full competition season before COVID. At that point, we had grown to 130 kids. We had 30 teams. We were representing kids from 2nd on up to 12th grade. We continue to call ourselves HASLETT Robotics, but we truly are a township-wide organization. At that point, we were representing 20 schools from 9 different school districts. Okemos has taken over. They are about 60% of our kids. HASLETT is about 30, and then the rest are kids from Mason and Williamston and what have you. What else could I cover there? Oh, and at that point, we still continued to recruit girls. We had 34%, I think, were girls. Nearly half of our coaches were women. So still meeting our goals there. We do have a challenge, though. We're in the high school. We are at capacity. So just dropping a hint, wherever we go, we are looking to expand. So please help us out if you can. All right, so I also want to reiterate that for that season, we had an exciting thing happen. These 2 guys over here came to us and said, you know, they were veterans. They said, we want to form our own team. We want to bring our sisters along with us. And we were gung-ho about that because we knew what they're like. We were so excited about that team. That year, they won 2 Excellence Awards. So they qualified to go to the state level multiple times. They were well-rounded and fantastic, great energy. Got to the state championship, and I'm sorry to keep reminding them of this. Things did not go their way. They did not advance to the finals. Bot problems, I forget the whole details. So they kind of ended there. The reason I bring that up is because next season, COVID hit. The club basically decided to step back. We couldn't meet anyway. And our practices, we're all together, we're getting close, we're working on bots, we're just breathing on each other. It's not a good thing to happen during a pandemic. We did have 5 teams that decided to meet on their own remotely. These 2 teams did so, and along the way, they both qualified for states, and they both qualified for worlds, so they met their goals on their own. Additionally, the girls took the Excellence Award at the state championship, so they decided that if they push the boys out of the way, then they're going to win. So with that, why don't we bring the kids up? Another one of our goals is we'd like to have the kids promote themselves, answer questions, talk about their season, et cetera. So why don't you come on up? So if you don't mind, we're just going to ask them a couple quick questions, and they'll talk, and we'll see how it goes. So let's start with the girls. So let me find our list of questions there. So what do you like about robotics? Why are you interested?
For me, it teaches me all the skills that I really need in life, like teamwork, sportsmanship, you know, being able to get around challenges, perseverance. And also, I want to go into engineering, so it's helping with that field too.
All right. So what field in engineering?
Biomedical engineering.
Biomedical engineering. All right. So when my hip goes out in 20 years, you'll help me out. How about you?
For me, I really like just like the challenge part of it, and also like all the teamwork things. But to me, I love how it's like one big puzzle, and I have to build things to like solve it. So that's really cool for me. And also like I want to go into engineering, so it helps.
Awesome. So can you tell us about your season and your bot?
So this is our bot, Dinosaurus Vex.
Dinosaurus Vex.
Yeah, so a claw was a big part of it. It kind of looks like a dinosaur that way, and we had to grab these risers with it.
There's like different scoring, so like in one case you gotta like stack all 3 of these, but there's a height limit and like width limit and so on. So you can, those are the challenges you have to work around.
So every year they have a different challenge. And sometimes they have to rebuild their bot and redo their strategy and come up with a new approach. Awesome. Is there anything else you'd like to cover? What was it like competing at the World Championship?
It was pretty cool, but yeah, it was just a Zoom though, but we got to decorate the whole basement, which was very fun and festive.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it.
Awesome. So at the World Championships, they will actually be competing against and allying with teams from around the world. So from China, and what teams did you meet?
We just did skills, so it was.
Oh, okay, just
It was,
skills.
yeah.
Okay, awesome.
You got to definitely get more, like, you got to see more teams and, like, you get a lot of ideas from it.
Fantastic. All right, how about you guys? What's interesting about robotics for you?
Well, I enjoy all the skills it teaches. It teaches teamwork. I'm also interested in computer science.
Awesome.
It teaches me about programming. For example, this year we worked on creating AI for our autonomous.
Ah,
It also for teamwork. For example, at Wars, we were partnering with teams from China, Mexico, Spain. Any language barriers are there.
Yeah.
However, this year, because it was virtual, we were able to use Google Translate and stuff to work our way around that.
so being virtual actually helped you out with overcome the language barriers from working with teams from China and Mexico. Awesome. Yeah, how about you?
For me, I think one of the really interesting things that I love about robotics is it's such a big community, and it's all these people, all these teams from all across the world that, have this common goal of you want to do excellent things and challenge yourself. That's really where the club comes in, because, they're the ones that really give that ability to all the kids here locally.
Awesome. Thank you for the plug. So we're about at time. Anybody have any questions for the teams?
Any board members have any questions for these wonderful, outstanding young people?
What, can I go ahead? What got you so interested in robotics and engineering? Is it just an internal love that you have, or what?
For me, I would just go downstairs, watch my brother building, and it was just fascinating to see what he was up to. Just seeing him coding and all that stuff.
For me, my brother went to the World Championship, so the year before I got to come along, so I was pretty lucky with that. But it was just really amazing to see all these robots that people would build from scratch, doing these complicated game stuff. So it was really cool.
I think I've been doing robotics since 3rd grade, so that's I think almost 8 years now. And I originally started just to try it out, and I found so much more than, it's just been an amazing experience, just so many things I never, even thought about before, and just really incredible.
I decided to give it a try about 3 years ago when I heard about some of my friends doing it.
Well, on behalf of the Township Board and the entire Meridian Township community, we want to congratulate you for your success at the World Championship and wish you good luck in the years ahead. Thank you very much.
Very impressive.
Thank you all for coming. We really enjoy having you here. It's just remarkable. Our community produces such outstanding young people, and we appreciate you very much.
Yes, thank you.
We'll give a moment for the students to leave. Okay, we're now ready for student citizens addressing agenda items and non-agenda items. We keep these to 3 minutes. There's no dialogue with the board. And we ask you to be polite and cordial to each other and to the board members, to address the board as a whole, not as any individual, and to hopefully keep your topics on point and as succinct as possible. And with that, do we have anyone who wants to come up and address the board for 3 minutes? Silence says everything. I guess no one wants to come forward. Okay. So now go on to the Township Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Good evening, and board. I'm not in the community for the next couple of days, attending the Michigan Municipal Executives conference over in Rochester. Just wanted to update you on a few things that are going on. We're reaching some stumbling blocks with the Woodward Way project, or the Road to Cooper, as maybe some of you recall. There are some issues with the county, with the developer. The main issue is the turning radius on cul-de-sac, and our community development director, Director Schmidt, is working with Mr. Perry and the fire department on this issue, trying to get it resolved. Right now, the position is that the developer will need to purchase more property, and there's not property available for sale to make this development go forward. We're trying to work to see if there's some kind of an agreement that can be reached on this issue. But again, it's a turning radius on a cul-de-sac. That's the project that's behind Whole Foods over off of Grand River. The local road project is going well. I would encourage you and the residents, if you have any questions about where we are with the local roads, to turn in Deputy Manager Perry, and our communications department does a great job of keeping the website up to speed on what's going on. But I know that we've been waiting for 5 or 7 years for the paving to happen up around the Bluegill Grill, around the lake, around Shaw. And I can tell you that that project should start tomorrow. So after a long, difficult wait, one was funding, and then once we got the funding, then it was an issue of a drain project with the county drain commissioner. So appreciate everyone's patience as we get to that. The solar project should commence, or it should end this week. We've been working on that for just over a week, and that project's at the service center. That's our third installment of the solar within the township. The Director Clark is working with the clerk's office to get the list of registered voters to hand off to Cobalt. The survey is ready to go out, and we'll be commencing here very, very soon. Pine Village, they requested a minor amendment to their development up in the HASLETT Village Square. That minor amendment's been approved. Pine Village is under a little bit of quite a bit of a timetable. Remember, their project, their demolition is tied to a graduated interest rate. And that interest rate declines over time the longer it takes them to demolish and get moving on that project. We also met with the Village of Okemos this week. We had a couple of meetings with staff and with the supervisor and the committee, which includes Trustee Jackson and Opsimer. And we are feeling somewhat positive about where it's going. There's some things to work out, and you'll be hearing a lot more information about that. Broadband is another thing that we're working on. You're well aware of that. We learned today that the county has selected Merit will be the consultant that they will use for looking at broadband on more of a regional basis than just Meridian Township. So that project continues to move along. I learned today from Director Tehoff that the DEI committee is again moving forward, and there's a meeting, training coming up on that here in the next 2 weeks. The website upgrade project is going well. We hope to turn that over to the Township Board and the community sometime in September. The 2022 budget prep is underway. Those requests have been turned over to Director Madison, and she is working through that. Right now, we expect to have a draft in the next couple of weeks. And remember, the final document, the final draft, will come to the board in the last few days of August. And then in September, the board will have at least 2 opportunities to vet the budget before some final adoption, which occurs in later September. I want to thank our fire department. It's my understanding, I don't have all the details, but we had a close call today at Lake Lansing, and they just do a great job. And from what I understand, they made a great save today. So I want to thank them publicly for that. And finally, I want to thank all of our team, all 107 members who came to our team picnic. It had been a few years since we've been able to do that, and we had a really incredible time building friendships and building goodwill and building good morale last week with our team picnic. And again, thank you to everyone who was involved, whether it was raising money for that or cooking or planning the wiffle ball game and all of that stuff. This was a great time. So that concludes my report for what's going on over here. I need to go head over to the host hotel for a gathering this evening, so Deputy Manager Perry will be taking over. But that's my report, Mr. Supervisor, unless there's any questions.
Are there any questions for the manager from any of the board members? If so, raise your hand. I don't see any hands. I don't have any questions. I think that was a good report. I thank you very much for your efforts and hope you have a good conference. I know those are important for the development of all of our staff, including yourself.
Yeah, thank you. We're proud to lead the general session on Thursday on building trust in your community. So it's going to be a good session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Perry, you are now in the hot seat, I guess. All right, we are now going to go on to board member reports of activities and announcements. Who wants to go first? Treasurer.
Just a couple of quick announcements. Tomorrow I will be attending the CATA board meeting. It's their July meeting, and it is their first meeting in person, and they're meeting at the old Sears store, which many of us went to get our COVID vaccine weeks or months ago. Secondly, I'd like to remind the community that tomorrow is also the ELMSA annual meeting open to the public. ELMSA is the East Lansing Meridian Water and Sewer Authority, which Deputy Manager Perry, I think, is still the chair of. And if you care about our water quality, which I know most of our residents do, I'd encourage people to attend or at least download the annual report. We have some of the best water, purest water, best tasting water in the entire region. And as treasurer, I can also announce that we have some of the lowest water and sewer rates of anywhere in the region. So we are well suited here to provide excellent water and sewer due to our joint agreement with East Lansing. And if you want to learn more about that whole operation, be there tomorrow at the ELMSA plant off of Bircham Drive, and tours will be available for the public afterwards. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Other board members? Clerk.
Thank you, Supervisor Stoika. Well, I haven't found better tasting water anywhere in the country, Treasurer DeShane, so I'm going to contend that it's the best tasting water anywhere I've been. I attended the Community Resource Commission meeting last week, and they had a motion to make sure that the funds from the Meridian DeShane fundraiser, which was $15,000 or around $15,000, is specifically going to housing and helping people who need housing. And then they also have some other efforts that they're working on to get the word out about Meridian Cares and what they do out at the farmers market. And then other than that, I've been working with the City of Lansing with their clerk's department for our staff to get some hands-on training with them during the August election on their AB counting board and the receiving board. And it's just part of an ongoing continued effort that our office has to improve the administration of elections. And that's my report.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Trustee Wazinski.
Thank you, Supervisor. Unfortunately, I wasn't there last Saturday at the farmers market, but apparently it was extremely successful. Our environmental commission and amongst multiple volunteers performed a medicine recycling event. I have a report here from Leroy, and he says, we received a lot more medicine than anticipated, collected 2.5 55-gallon barrels, so 200 pounds of medicine at the pop-up recycling event. In partnership with several departments, Public Works, Police, Communication, Parks, Facilities, Ingham County Health Department, the Green Team, volunteers from Okemos High School Earth Club, Lions Club, Ingham Conservation District. They also collected over 10 pounds of controlled medicine with several hundred medicine bottles for reuse or recycling. The Ingham County Conservation District provided information about microplastic pollution prevention and also provided other pollution and prevention resources. So I think it went 1,000 times better than they anticipated. And they do plan to have another one or at least host one annually. So that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Other board members? My report, basically, it was sort of mentioned by the manager. I participated in a number of meetings with the potential developers of the Yokomis Village area, the downtown, as we call it. And we're hoping that we're moving along in a positive direction on that. It's been a long road, almost a never-ending one, but we think we can see some light at the end of the tunnel, and we're moving forward. Anyone else? Last chance. Okay, all right, then we will move on to approval of the agenda. Motion from the treasurer.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Seconded by Ms. Sutherland, is that right?
Wazinski.
Oh, Ms. Wazinski, okay. I thought earlier I saw Ms. Sutherland there. All right, so we have a motion to approve the agenda. Is there any final chance to comment on that? And we need a vote.
All right, Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Trustee forget that. Trustee Sundlin?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
And Supervisor Syka?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So we have an
6-0.
agenda. We now move on to the consent agenda. It has only 3 things on it. Well, multiple parts. Communications, of which there are many. Bills, which we have over meeting to approve. And the ratification of the full-time paramedic firefighter appointment. Need a motion, Ms. Jackson.
Yes, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Supported by Ms. Sutherland. Okay. Any need on the minutes or anything?
No.
Then we need a vote.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Trustee Sundlin?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Supervisor Syka?
Yes.
And Clerk Guthrie votes yes. The motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Moving on to the agenda, no questions of attorney, no hearings. We now come to our action items, which is 12. And we have 3 of those. ABC is the Pathway Master Plan update. And I believe Mr. Perry, who is the master of the master plan for the pathways, will be giving us a master stroke demonstration.
Good evening, Supervisor Styka, members of the board. Appreciate that introduction. We are at the point where we need to consider adopting the updated Pathway Master Plan for the next 5 years. As discussed at the last meeting, there's been several opportunities for boards and commissions to weigh in and members of the public. Last Township Board meeting, we actually had a public hearing in regards to that. We've received some additional correspondence via mail. We've incorporated those comments and concerns into the plan. And I think, again, unless the board has any questions, I'm willing to present any information you need to make a decision.
All right, board members, so we have in front of us the materials and potential motion. Who wants to make the motion first?
Oh, my God.
Ms. Jackson?
I first asked Mr. Perry if after your presentation last week, any of the suggestions or you received materially changed what we saw.
We did not. No.
Okay.
So the original 10 additional locations are unchanged as presented at the last meeting.
Okay. Then I would move to adopt the Pathway Master Plan for I would move to adopt the Pathway Master Plan 2021 update as presented.
Is there support for that?
Support.
Treasurer, okay. Sorry, Treasurer's hand before his support. All right, any further discussion, Ms. Jackson?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Any further discussion?
No, I found the presentation from last week ambitious and encouraging. And so I'm excited to see the progress we make between now and 2024, 25, I think is the end of the plan presented. I look forward to it.
Thank you. Treasurer.
The comment I would like to make is that I thought the discussion of using the utility right-of-way was a very exciting one, and I hope that avenue gets pursued and we can make that north-south route happen. In terms of other comments from other, I know you took this on the road to lots of different commissions and a couple of times with the Transportation Commission. Did it evolve over time, or is this plan essentially the one you started with?
There were several comments, and the plan did evolve a little. Actually, Trustee Opsmer had a couple comments during different boards and commission meetings, and we incorporated those requested changes too. So
very good.
Yep.
Anyone else? Then we need a vote to adopt the pathway plan.
All right, Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Trustee Sunland?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Supervisor Stajka?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. We now have an addition on to our master pathway plan for another 5 years. We now move on to item 12B, paramedic school sponsorship. I'll entertain a motion first, and then we can talk about it. Ms. Madner was on the agenda. Ms. Wazinski.
I move to approve the sponsorship of a firefighter EMT to attend a 16-month paramedic program at the Ascension Genesis Hospital.
Support.
Who said that support, please?
Trustee Jackson?
Okay. All right, Ms. Wazinski, you have any comments on this, or do you want to hear from the staff?
I'd like to hear from the chief. That'd be great.
Okay, Chief, would you like to come forward and tell us about this?
Yeah, thank you, Supervisor, and thank you, Board. So this is the program we talked about last week. It's one of our way of recruiting and trying to get people to become paramedics. Sending them fire training is the easy part. It's finding paramedics today just because there's a shortage across the state and across the country. So with this option, we would send this individual to this program. Be a couple days a week, 5 hours each day, and then they have to do clinical in an ambulance and clinical time in a hospital. So.
Any questions for the chief on this? Yes, Ms. Wazinski.
No questions. You presented well last time. I just want to say that this has worked well for our police department in the past. I think it's a fantastic idea. We are, lacking skilled trades all over, and our EMTs are so very important. So I think this is a really great idea, and I appreciate you heading up the effort.
Thank you.
Treasurer.
I too would like to commend the chief for bringing this to the township board as a way to increase our firefighters, paramedics. This is a longer program than the police academy, correct? By almost a year?
Yeah, the police academy, I believe, is 1 semester. Sorry, Chief. 16 weeks.
Okay. And this was a year and a half?
It's basically 16 months. Okay. So a year and a half, yeah.
Along those lines, what kind of assurance do we get, the taxpayers get, that the person we're enrolling will in fact pay back that, if you will, the debt for the education to the community? Great
question. So the way the contract reads is they would have to pay it back in full if they drop out or fail out. Once they are finished and pass their state test and we hire the individual, then they have to make a 3-year commitment with us, or they have to pay it back to a graduated degree. And then after that, we've got them for 3 years, most likely. We've got a pretty good, plus the troops are going to help them, so they're going to help them be successful. They've got 32 other paramedics over there that are going to grill them and push them through and train them and work with them to make them pass.
And it's part of the training to be actually working with other Meridian Township paramedics?
Correct.
Very good. Thank you.
Ms. Jackson.
Yes, Chief, my understanding is that this is a single instance program for a targeted position. So it's not an ongoing program where we might see, we're not authorizing at this point an ongoing program where we might see it applied more than once.
Yes and no.
Okay.
So so how we have to do it compared to what Chief Plaga does. Chief Plaga does it when he has a vacancy. But because ours is so much longer, I can't keep a vacancy for 18 months. Or 16 months, I'm sorry. But what we have to do is look out at our retirements and try to time it where we could potentially find future candidates to hire in the same capacity, send them to a paramedic program, which they would graduate from the program about the same time of retirement. So we're going to look at this again in January. There's another program. I just have to see if the timing's right because it's going to be more than a few months difference. So.
I see. I think I tried to ask that same question last week, and you gave me that answer. Now I understand.
It's okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was a very good question, very good answer. Yes. Anyone else? So this will
Quick question. So how do you plan to market this, and do you have a targeted approach, or is it open to anybody?
So what we're going to do is when we determine there's an opening, we're going to we've reached out and recruited already. I have a number of, it's just out there, we're reaching out to people. We go to LCC's EMT program and paramedic program often and try to recruit. So right now I've got 3 paramedics that are finishing at LCC that are going to come apply part-time. If they get through the process, we're going to hire them as part-time paramedics and then potentially send them to the fire academy this late fall. For this program, it's going to be as needed, and we'll do an open application process, kind of explain what it is, and then try to draw some people and then interview them and find the best candidate that we, the hard part, it's a tough program, so someone's got to be very dedicated to be able to sit down and go through this program. It's a very difficult test at the end. So,
great, thank you.
You're welcome.
other board members? Chief, just generally for the public's benefit, the people that work under you as the chief of our fire protection, public safety, in that aspect, are they all paramedics? Are they all firefighters? I mean, how does it all work?
Yes, so with the exception of our administrative assistants, every individual in the fire department is a paramedic firefighter.
And the reason for that, can you give us just in a nutshell?
So basically, the way that our operation runs is we hire strictly firefighter paramedics, which again goes back to the paramedics. There's just such a lack of medics out there. So, the other option we looked at is hiring an EMT, because you have to be an EMT before you can go to paramedic school. So the other option was in the future hiring EMTs and then sending them to paramedic school. There's a few fire departments that do that, give them 2 years to finish the paramedic program, or they terminate. The problem there is that would be extremely expensive. I did 6 months of this program with an individual that would be full-time, and just 6 months of overtime was about $8,000. So if we looked at a full year with sending them on their days off, sending them while they're on duty, and potentially having people fill in for them while they're attending the program, it would be a tremendous feat and costly to do. So this is our other option. So really the way that Meridian Township, long before me, has hired strictly paramedics. So we run dual paramedics on the ambulance, which gives us 2 higher level hands to manage patients. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and basically the idea is that in terms of the people that are serving at our various our 3 different stations, et cetera, and ready to go out on calls, they're able to do either job as needed, whether it's a paramedic type service or a firefighting type service or a combination thereof. They're all trained in both capacities and allows more efficiency in that way. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And we're now ready to vote on this. We need a motion to vote on this program. I think we have a motion. Don't we already?
Yes.
Clerk?
Yeah, we have a motion from Wazinski and support from Jackson.
Okay, unless anyone else has a comment, let's have a vote.
All right, trustee Sumlin?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Supervisor Stika?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
And trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you all very much. We now move on to SNEED, under action items, the second quarter budget amendments. And for this, I'm sure we're going to see our financial director, Meridian. Describe what's going on.
Did you want to read the motion first, or do you want me to just to dive into it?
I want you to dive into it first.
Okay. So I have the second quarter budget amendments in front of you, and what we're asking for the second quarter budget amendments is an addition to the general fund balance of $347,200. How we came up with that additional is the biggest chunk of it is from our CARES grant that we received for the First Responders Hazard Pay Premium Program. And then there's additional money from Metro Act fees and then our local revenue sharing agreement totaling $970,000. We're asking for additional expenditures for board salaries, administrative claims, May election costs, which should be reimbursed to us, our single audit for the audit, and also temporary staffing, police ammunition, and then COVID expenses for workstations. And the biggest chunk of the expenditures has been already been approved by the Township Board, which is the small business grants that came out of the Redevelopment Ready Fund. So just re-putting that money back into that redevelopment fund. So that's it for the general fund with that addition to the budget amendment. So we're adding back to the fund balance. With that additional, it should leave the fund balance at $9,251,800. So the special revenue or special funds, another pre-approved expenses out of our tax increment revolving fund, which we call the TURF. It's for the Powell Road Special, or SAD, that's been approved. And then there is an additional request out of our Community Needs Fund, totaling $24,600. And that's the quick overview. Is there any questions? Ms. Jackson has a question.
You're muted, Ron.
Yeah. You're muted.
Supervisor Stikeling, you're still muted. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I said the picture is such that it's difficult for me to see your hands because you're all very small people. Jackson, I understand right there.
Nice to be smaller than each other. Director Madison, this increase in board salaries, I believe, is a part of the budget amendment, and that is a result of the increase that came from the termination by the.
That's the recommendation from the local, the LOC.
Yes.
So local officials compensation. So what I budgeted in the 2021 budget did not match what the LOC had proposed.
Right.
So that's just the small difference there
Okay.
for the trustees.
Just checking to be sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions for Miriam? Madison? Treasurer?
I'll make the motion. I move to approve the second quarter 2021 budget amendments with an increase in the budgeted fund balance for the general fund in the audited amount of $347,200, which projects a use of fund balance of $1,011,985. Based on 2020 results, the projected fund balance at December 31st, 2021 will be $9,251,800. This does not account for the anticipated American Rescue Plan funding in the amount of approximately $4.5 million.
Okay, is there a second to that? Ms. Jackson, okay.
Support.
Any further discussion, Mr. DeShane?
Just to point out that the biggest item on this is the Meridian Redevelopment Fund Community Promotions, which is our small business grants. And we're back open again, but we want to remember that when we award these grants, most of our small businesses, restaurants in particular, we're hurting. We're still closed and risk of closing up. And so I think we should be proud of this expense back in the heart of COVID, and hopefully we made a difference for many of these businesses. And based on the number that are still open, I'm guessing we did.
Okay. All righty, let's make some notes. Anyone else? Ms. Madison, roughly what is the percentage of the total budget that we have on fund balance now?
I guess, can you clarify your question? I'm not sure.
In other words, what percentage, we have a budget of X dollars amount, and how much do we have on fund balance? What percent is that? 20%? 25%? What do we have on here?
Well, our required fund balance that we need to, per the board recommendation, is 5.2 million. If that's what you're asking. So we're required to have 5.2 million, and we have 9.2 million. And
okay, but the 5.2 million is, well, we came up with that by coming up with a general percentage of what the budget is and trying to have that on hand, and that was what percent?
I think he's asking for what would be the percentage of our total operating budget, and I think you have 4.81,
so
almost 40%.
Yeah, so
40%.
the expenses would cover 4.81 months of that. So yeah, we could, with the existing fund balance that we have, we could cover, that's what the 4.81 is. It will cover 4.81 months of expenditures with that existing fund balance without getting an additional revenue in. If that's what you're at. So we have.
All I was trying to do is demonstrate that our fund balance is very healthy.
Yes.
For example, when
yes, very healthy.
I'm sorry, what was that?
And just to clarify, taxes are coming in very well this year, so there's no issue about a lack of residents paying their taxes.
Our fund balance is very healthy. When I was on the school board, we used to aim at a much lower percentage of our total budget for fund balance just to protect ourselves, and we far exceed that, and I think it's good for the public to know that we're in good shape. We're not throwing money away. We have enough money on hand, as you just said, for almost 5 months without additional revenue even coming in. So I think that's all solid. It demonstrates the kind of activities that happen in your office and throughout the township. All right, we need a vote.
Oh, I was just going to say, I believe that this is probably one of the healthiest balances we've had over time.
Yes, this is the largest that I've seen at this point, and we will be receiving, like I said, in the motion, that we will be also receiving that additional funds from the ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan also. So, we're in a really good position as a township.
Okay, back to what I said, we do need a vote.
All right. Treasurer DeShane?
Yes.
Clerk Guthrie votes yes. Supervisor Stajka?
Yes.
Trustee Wazinski?
Yes.
Trustee Sumlin?
Yes.
And Trustee Jackson?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Madison. Okay, now we move on to our discussion items. And the first one is the rezoning number 21050, M&J Management, rezone approximately 5-acre parcel located at 1999 Saginaw Highway from C2 commercial to I industrial. Is Mr. Tim, here he is. Go ahead. Give us a little description, please.
Thank you very much, Supervisor and Board. The request you have in front of you this evening is essentially a reversion of a rezoning that was approved about 5 years ago at 1999 Saginaw Highway. It's currently zoned C2 commercial. The applicant is proposing to rezone it back to I industrial, which is what it was zoned previously. Essentially, their business plans have changed, and it's a better opportunity for them to potentially expand on the site or build another building on the site than hold out for potential commercial development in the future, which is a good to hear. Businesses growing within the township. Planning Commission has reviewed the request, held a public hearing in May, and made a positive recommendation to the board in June, on June 14th. It is the property is surrounded by existing industrial zoning, has water and sewer, and is consistent with the master plan for land use from 2017. Ultimately, this is a reasonably straightforward request, and I won't belabor the details at this point, but all the Planning Commission information and the staff memorandums are in your packet this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have at this time.
Okay, that description, board members, it's time to talk about this. Ms. Wazinski.
I should know this, Director Schmidt, but what is existing on the adjacent parcels?
So you have a number of industrial businesses along the Saginaw corridor there. Obviously, the Meridian Company is located right there. I believe the overhead garage door is directly adjacent, overhead door company. And you take a little bit further to the, if you go a little bit further to the north, you get into Bath Township, and that's where you see the Meyer and the RV store and the auto body shop.
One other question, might be a two-part. It appears that on this property that there's both wetlands and there's a drain that runs through that property. With industrial type use, how can we make sure that we're maintaining integrity of our groundwater?
Yeah, so they certainly will have to follow all of our wetland ordinance requirements and stormwater management practices of the Drain Commissioner's Office. Ultimately, their development is going to be limited on this site to sort of the front portion where they don't have those natural features impacts. The rear portion of the site is likely to remain undeveloped.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Jackson.
I don't have a question. I would say at this point that I would, my inclination is to support the Planning Commission recommendation to approve probably at our next meeting, I presume.
We will introduce it at the next meeting, and there's a notice requirement. So it will be, rezoning is one of the few things that we can't expedite very much under our ordinances.
Right. So, again, I'm in favor of supporting the request to revert to industrial from commercial on this site.
Anyone else? Treasurer?
More follow-up in terms of their intended use for this. Do they have a specific intended use once it's gone back to industrial?
The applicant is here this evening, and I'm sure he'd be willing to speak to that if you'd like to ask him that question.
Would the applicant please come up?
Good evening. My name is Jim Filipich, and I reside at 5823 Wood Valley in HASLETT. And I, together with my brother Marty over here, comprise the alphabet soup known as M&J Management. And I can give it to you straight. Since we constructed and moved into our current facility 21 years ago, our revenues have nearly tripled. Our staffing levels have more than doubled. We've outgrown our shoebox, and our intentions are to construct a newer facility on this 5-acre site for the Meridian Company. And we will subsequently, upon completion of that and moving in, will rent our current 21-year-old facility to a approved industrial zone user. So that's our intentions. We've outgrown our shoebox.
Can you give us a follow-up on your intent to create a trade academy of sorts, if I'm correct?
I'm more than happy to. Since that transpired, I think circa 2016, at that time, there was an entity in Lansing in somewhat of an embryonic stage called the Greater Michigan Construction Academy. Its parent, or it's headquartered in Midland, where the Dow Chemical Company is a huge supporter of trade schools, though they like about 13 or 14 different trades that they teach there. Well, this fledgling campus in Lansing has now grown to the point that it's serving the needs of employers such as ourselves. We don't necessarily have to incur the expense, the infrastructure stuff, or to put these apprenticeship programs on in-house. We're re-enrolling next month 5 or 6 second-year heating and air conditioning and plumbing apprentices in this 4-year program. So the need, or the perception of the need that I originally brought to the EDC and subsequent to that the Planning Commission, it's still there, but it's migrated to a more of a, that's what they do best, educational scheme of things at GMCA, as opposed to us trying to undertake something that, frankly speaking, we're better at something else.
Thank you for the update.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity for this audience tonight, very much so. Thank you.
I have a question, Jim.
Go ahead, Group.
Thank you. What's the size of your current facility, and what is the anticipated size of?
We're just under 19,000 now. As recently as 3 weeks ago, the proposed new one was going to be somewhere between 31 and 32, of which we would occupy roughly 25,000 square feet, with 6,000 square feet available for subletting for like-kind businesses. But we opted, partially because of consideration of the impending smart zone initiative, that we'd like to go ahead and just construct this next facility simply for ourselves, and as potential demand or interest grows for that initiative, we could attempt to work with the township and prospective tenants for the additional space on other footprints. And plus, we figure from a timeline perspective, by keeping it under 25,000 square feet, we easily shave 2 to 3 months off the review and process. And neither my brother and I are spring chicks anymore. And I'd like to get this done, and we're going to ride off into some measure of retirement. So,
thank you.
Other questions?
Do you have any tenant lined up in the old building yet?
No, we're in dialogue with I guess you could say, a premier real estate commercial firm that's very, very familiar with that stretch. The individuals there, the principals, were involved heavily with the whole Costco experience, and actually the individual we're working with is the one that probably brought us to where we're at back in 1998. So nothing signed, but we know the market out there right now is supposedly for single user warehouse office environments at 18,000 square feet and beyond. That's what the market is. There's supposedly a shortage of that pedigree of square footage in that use in the metro area. Other questions? I'm sorry, but we've just grown.
Don't apologize for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Kulovich? I want to thank him. He contacted me early on this because, as was said, we're going in one direction a number of years ago, and we made a zoning change, and now he's strangely wanting to go back, but it makes sense in terms of his business and the future. And so I think we're doing a good thing as we move forward with this zoning change. And I also want to thank him because, as Cliff Guthrie could tell you, his staff helped us with those many food pantries during the COVID crisis, and they did that totally out of the charity and goodwill of their hearts. So we truly appreciate he and his company and his staff.
You're welcome. Yes.
All right. Any further discussion on this? If not, I think we're going to have this up for action next time and keep it moving forward through the lengthy process.
Thank you. We'll bring it back in the next meeting.
Thank you. All right. Our next item is rezoning 21030, New China of Michigan. A request to rezone 0.42 acres, less than half an acre, at 5114 Jodan Drive from RC, which is a multiple family residential, which can handle 14 approximate dwelling units per acre, to RCC, which is multiple family residential, that can handle up to 24 dwelling approximate per acre. So that is what's in front of us, and can we have a description of that, Mr. Director?
Thank you, sir. So briefly, this is a somewhat unique request. The existing building at 5114 Jodan is in many ways not in compliance with our current ordinances, but they do have what is essentially a vacant residential lot to the north attached to their property. It roughly is the same size as the other lots on Jodan Drive. But it's attached to their property. So they approached the previous director as to how to be able to potentially split this off and build a new single-family home on it for potential sale, not for expanded multifamily use. So it is a complicated process, and this is sort of the first step in this process. But the proposal would rezone the whole property to a higher density multifamily residential district to get it further in compliance with the ordinance. And then they have offered as a condition to alleviate some of the concerns to come back and then downzone the property to the north to be consistent with the surrounding residential uses, so that they can then split that off to create the residential lot to build on. This is the first step in a multi-hurdle process. If the Township Board chooses to move forward with this. The Planning Commission did review it extensively prior to my time here, and then they took action at the June 14th meeting and sent forward no recommendation. It was a split vote. There was a bit of confusion on the part of one of the commissioners at the meeting, and they requested to abstain from the vote because they did not feel as though they were properly informed, and so hence the split vote that is in front of you this evening. The Planning Commission did go back and forth on this extensively, as you can see from the minutes and the staff reports that have been provided. It is a somewhat complicated and convoluted request, but we are trying to accommodate as best we can the property owner and try and move this forward. So I'd be happy to answer any questions that the Township Board might have this evening. The Supervisor, you are muted.
Sorry about that. A quick question. Where is this in relationship to the Lower Cooper project that's having issues with regard to space for turnarounds of snowplows, et cetera?
There is no relation. This is a completely separate project and completely separate property. The Woda Cooper project is a more nuanced engineering issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay, this is not adjacent to it, is what I was asking.
It's a couple properties away.
Okay, that's what I was really getting at. It's not adjacent. Okay. All right, board members, time to discuss. Ms. Jackson.
So, Mr. Schmidt, you suggested that this procedure was not intended to increase the number of multi-family units on the 0.42 acre site.
Correct, because they have offered a condition that they come back and downzone the northern portion and split it off within 30 days. If that doesn't happen within 30 days, this gets reversed. So that there will be a second request in front of you within the next couple months that will prevent additional multifamily structures from being built.
So the point of upzoning is to bring the multifamily unit, the multifamily property into compliance.
Closer to compliance.
Closer to compliance in the zone, for zoning purposes.
Correct.
And so there's no intent at all to increase the number of family units.
Correct.
In this process.
With the condition they've added, there is no scenario under which they can do it. If the board approves this, there is no plan in place for them to build anything, and within 30 days, a decision to reverse the zoning would come forward if they haven't met the condition.
You were right, Mr. Schmidt, this is confusing. Trustee Wazinski.
Am I correct that there is a current 2-story garden level 6-unit apartment building on that property?
Correct. It's on the southern end of the property, and the northern end will be where they will split off the vacant land to allow for potential development.
So is there any plans for change to that property itself?
The property with the garden level apartments?
Correct.
None that we have been made aware of.
And if we were to upzone this, would there be possibility that they could increase?
It would require a substantial number of variances, and staff has made it clear that it won't be supported.
Thank you.
Treasurer.
What were the members of the public comment on the parking issue that they foresaw with this redevelopment, this rezoning? Was that addressed by the Planning Commission or answered to the Planning Commission?
The Planning Commission did not address it specifically at their meeting because they're not proposing multifamily construction. Any construction that they would propose will be of a single-family nature, and it will be parked itself.
Not street parking, parking on the property itself?
On the property itself.
Thank you.
Others. Any general feelings on this in terms of where we go next, the board members? Ms. Jackson.
At this point, I can see supporting the scheme with the condition offered by the owners that there will not be any construction on the 0.42 acre part. And as I'm understanding it, this is all about doing two things, accomplishing two things. Bringing the lower part into closer into compliance and allowing the applicant to split the lots so that but the zoning on the second lot is still RCC?
Yeah, so their condition would then require them to submit within 30 days to downzone that back
to single
family to allow for that construction to happen.
Okay. Under those conditions, I could see supporting this scheme.
I think I will say Mr. Kieselbach was trying very hard to find a path for this applicant, and although this is somewhat confusing, it is a reasonable approach to try and get them to where they're trying to be, which is essentially going to be a single-family house.
Right. The last thing I personally would hate to see happen is that the multifamily is increased under any circumstances.
I cannot think of a scenario under which that would happen.
Okay.
Ms. Wazinski.
I would concur with Trustee Jackson, given the conditions and also given the adjacent property use of single-family housing. If you're confident that, this is the route to go and wouldn't put us at any risk for additional multifamily housing, or increased density, I would be inclined to support as well.
Treasurer?
We'll go along with Trustees Kuzinski and Jackson on this. The condition, I think, is a strong one. If they don't move to downzone it, the rezoning goes away. That's enough of a guarantee for me that this is a safe move and will allow for just a single family to be built on that property. Glad to hear that the previous director, Kiesbach, was trying to find a way out. I mean, we do have property owners that do want to have the legitimate use by right to their properties, and sometimes the zoning gets in the way. This sounds like a path to allow them to use it for a better purpose, which would be a single-family home.
I will comment that I agree with the last three speakers. I think the condition is the critical point here. And I think the way it's written, thank you, Mr. Smith, for helping with that. And Mr. Kieselbach before him, I think it's something we can do. Anyone else? If not, we'll move this on for the next steps at the next meeting.
Thank you very much. We'll bring it back in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Okay, our next item is the Smart Zone Local Development Finance Authority. Ms. McGee.
Good evening, board members. So we are again bringing the Smart Zone Local Development Finance Authority for discussion. This is kind of our second time bringing it toward the board. So just as a simple recap, we are potentially proposing to have properties on Towner and Don Avenue included in the Regional Smart Zone, which is a collaborative agreement tax authority capture between the cities of East Lansing and the city of Lansing, and would include Meridian Township. I mean, there's so many things to talk about. This is a very big plan, but a great opportunity, I believe, for the community. As we heard tonight, I can think of two examples of things that are on our agenda this evening that could be supported by Smart Zone in our community. And one, I mean, a great plug for the HASLETT robotics team. My son has yet to reach even states because he refuses to write in his journal. But the basis of it, you spend your whole day watching these students, and it's self-propelled. So all of their journal work, all of the robotics work, all of their teamwork, it's done completely by the students. I was a coach, so that should explain a lot to you, that I have absolutely no engineering or math skills at all. And really, you're there to watch the students and just make sure that they meet their schedules. They're the ones that are propelling this whole industry of innovation. And my son wants to be like, you know, he wants to go to Mars. So this whole conversation for the robotics team, I didn't know that they started out with only 10 students and basically 2 teams for that club. It's 400 students in HASLETT. We're taking over the whole block of the high school. The fact that they have to ask people like me to be a coach should also tell you that they're struggling to be able to get the right kind of volunteers in the space to teach the students hand-on. Is that much of an interest? And how great would it be for our community to be able to kickstart a program that does this kind of Lake Lansing MSU pathway, where we end up teaching the students on this innovative industry that they really love and get them into university and into the programs that are supported by MSU's innovation and their wet labs. So that's how I see Meridian kind of making their mark as far as the future for something that already exists and a passion. You grow and develop your community with the talent that exists, and you heard tonight that already is in existing, and the Smart Zone has an internship program right now where they take MSU students and they tie them up to or tie them with a technology-based business, and a lot of them being in the TIC and in the Van Camp buildings to teach that hands-on experience for those students. And then we have development on the Saginaw Highway Towner area where we already can see that there's a need. 98% of the site requests that we receive from LEAP is a request for an industrial manufacturing space. And we get kicked out of even the conversation as a contender for a community to bring that business in because we don't have the availability of space. And looking at what we have right now, how can we maximize and I know we're a suburban community, we don't want a lot of industrial, but it doesn't have to be heavy industrial that we could encourage another business to come in. So I welcome your questions so that we can go back to the consultants. I've got Joe Carr here with LEAP as well for us to go over anything else that you might have to add.
Okay, board members, time to discuss this. Mr. Hobson did indicate to me that he wanted me to mention that he was, at this point, was listening, but he's not too enamored of this project, this proposal. He'll elaborate more at the next meeting when he gets a chance to. Ms. Wazinski.
I thank you, Director Clark, for bringing this to us. I would agree that a couple things, that as much as the word industrial scares me as an environmental advocate, I agree that it does not have to be heavy industrial, so I'm glad you made that clarification. But that we are moving more towards a technology-based world. And if we can foster kids and/or other folks that have this, the ability to do this type of work, I think that's really important. And in order to do that, it makes sense to be intentional on determining where that should be. So where in the township would that make most sense? Dawn Avenue, for example, is a perfect idea where it's really kind of dilapidated right now. So if we can bring in more businesses and foster that type of activity, I think it makes sense for the township. I don't have too many questions at this point. I still do need to, I've read it once, but I've got to kind of absorb all of that information, but that's my initial thoughts.
Ms. Jackson.
As I understand it, the municipalities, the Lansing, East Lansing, MSU, LEAP, are all members of this Smart Zone funding mechanism or authority. And that what they do is to promote development of technology businesses and projects in certain sections of these different locations and localities. And at this point, they've been doing, these groups have been participating in this process for, is it 5 years?
Oh, at least it's 20 years, I believe is the project.
And as he comes up to correct me, 20 years, but Meridian Township, in these 20 years, Meridian Township has already benefited from this process by having 2 Smart Zone projects placed in Meridian Township. One is the Van Camp Incubator, I guess, Laboratory Technology Incubator, and the other is high caliber carding. Okay, so now, I'll get back to you in just a second. So now they're inviting us to participate in this support mechanism. And as a part of that participation, we get to designate and include at least 2 areas in Meridian Township that become part of the Smart Zone. That being Dawn Avenue and the Towner Road. Okay. So I'm good on that?
Yes.
Joe Carr.
Mr. Carr.
Yes.
Please correct me.
The Smart Zone was initially set up in 2007, so it's coming up on the 15-year mark. And with that, being designated a Smart Zone gives our region access to state-level programs. It helps tie together certain resources like MSU to community, to the TIC incubator, and now the Van Camp incubator potentially. I think the future of the Smart Zone, though, is about establishing local resources as well, to tie even further into what our communities do well. We had a young woman here that said she wanted to be a biomedical engineer. You know, I see there's potential. You know, we have an existing internship program. Maybe we go further beside, you know, the college students at MSU and down into the high school level to bring apprenticeships, tech apprenticeships. You know, that's a potential opportunity that we could develop. You know, with the Smart Zone.
Okay.
Treasurer.
Yeah, I have some questions about the tax capture component of this, and discussed this last meeting, and I understand that all the tax capture is coming from East Lansing right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
And for fiscal year 20, it was $251,910 based on page 10 of the LEAP report. Which properties is that specifically for?
This covers, I think, roughly from Albert down to not quite Hagedorn, so it's part of Cedar Village. So if you think of the newer buildings, the hub, and it also includes the Graduate Hotel, I believe, and then along Albert Ave as well.
So it's essentially their entire DDA?
Yes, it exactly overlays their DDA.
Okay. And Lansing is not bringing in any revenue for their tax capture properties because the baseline was done at a time when property values were high. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Do you expect that to change?
I don't think there's anything specific, you know, that's public knowledge or in development that I can speak to, but I think that with the McLaren Hospital being built, you know, a brand new hospital being built of that substance, I think the hope is that some of those parcels may, you know, develop into something and start to bring those property values back up.
As anyone who follows the residential market knows, it's a red hot time right now for residential property sales. I don't know what the commercial market is like, but I'm guessing that values are up over the long-term trend now rather than down. So what assurance do we have that we aren't going to be in a similar situation beginning of tax capture in 2021 or 2022 at the top of the commercial market?
You know, that's a great question, and that's something I'd probably have to defer to someone with a little bit more TIF experience. As far as insurances, I'm not sure we can give any.
Okay.
I guess one thing I would like to add, I mean, because we have concern, right? Are we going to enter another tax capture that's actually going to put money into the community, or are we just kind of, you know, seeing some of the unsuccesses repeat? We can leave the authority at any time without any negative impacts to the community as well. So if we feel like it's unsuccessful, that may be the avenue too. I just look at this as an opportunity to be included and to utilize something that does exist, and something that we have been able to prove to be successful when we weren't necessarily intentional about it in the community before. It was just driven by market. Now knowing that there's intention and passion and talent here, it might be something we can capitalize off of.
What I think would be helpful for this board member is if the staff came back to us with, you've given us our options here, but if you would list both the potential benefit and any particular risk involved in creating this tax capture, bring that back to a future board meeting so we can discuss it openly like that. What can we benefit from it? What are the potential downside of this tax capture? Because of any tax capture, there is some. That would be useful for me.
You know, I would point out that we used to be a township extremely adverse to all kinds of tax captures. TIFs were here in Meridian, and now we seem to be having them appear more and more regularly. And there is a concern that we be very careful about this. You know, the CIA, the Order Improvement Authority, has no TIF connected to it in Meridian, and it has been begging for one. It can't really do much of anything without it. And that would include the Don Avenue area, by the way, as part of the CIA. There's other issues here that overlay this that we need to think about before we're ready to act on it. So I think further discussion that incorporates not only this proposal specifically, but generally, as the treasurer said, generally the ups and downs in terms of tax capture, et cetera, and looking at some of the other programs, the DDA and what it's doing with tax capture going forward, our CIA and its desires, et cetera. So we should talk about this again at our next meeting. Is there anyone disagree with that or have something else? Yes, Ms. Guthrie.
Thank you, Supervisor Syka. Can you explain to me what has Meridian Township been missing out on? Have we missed something because we're not part of this? How long did you say it was? 20 years?
15 years.
15 years. We're gonna get that year right. We're gonna get it right. Have we missed out on something big coming here? Have we missed out on money? We missed out on some innovation, some technology? Has something happened that said, oh my gosh, Meridian Township, you need to be part of this because you missed X, Y, and Z? Or is it just a regional collaboration kind of thing? I'm trying to understand.
I don't think anything's been necessarily missed out on. I guess the way I would frame it is, if there's a company in the Van Camp Incubator that receives a $1 million federal grant for research, I think being able to formally take credit for that, for putting forth the programming to help secure that type of federal money, I think that's the opportunity really, is these companies are coming into the region for the resources we have, and to have to be a part of it and actively promoting it, I think it would be a benefit to everyone within Meridian Township's community, the board and everyone else.
For me specifically in my position, like I said, we receive site searches through our partnership with LEAP and being a redevelopment ready community. That's part of their assistance that they provide to us, is to let us know, hey, we've got this business that's looking that would like to spend money and develop in your community. Again, in the 8 to 10 months that I've been here, I have yet to find a site that is suitable in our township based off of the use that they're requiring and then the square footage that they're looking for. They're going to need a 5-acre chunk of land if they're going to do a new build, or they're going to need a building that's 19, 20, 30,000 square feet in order to do their industrial warehousing. Again, not necessarily heavy, because LEAP will give an indication of what kind of manufacturing. So even the light industrial, we don't have anything suitable for them. So
they're prevented from doing that without Smart Zone? Is that what I hear you saying?
I'm saying the health of incorporating the Smart Zone into our community could help us create some additional opportunities for us to invite them to our community.
And so I'm just trying to understand this. So what I'm hearing is you saying that with the resources and them going to you with those resources, and they're coming to Meridian Township where there's a spot that those two things are working together. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have other areas in the township that you're looking at as well?
For the Smart Zone?
Other areas where we're deficient, where we don't have tenants, like the mall or downtown Okemos? Because I see like these specific areas, is this something you're looking at having elsewhere?
No, to be included in the Smart Zone, you have to be an industrial zone parcel.
Okay, so that's it. Okay. And those are the only areas? Are there other areas? That's it?
That's it.
We only have the two small industrial zones. That's it.
Trustee Jackson has her hand up, sir.
Ms. Jackson?
So in the issue we dealt with relating to the Meridian Company and that the location where they're rezoning back to industrial, this piece of property, I got the impression that the people involved in that concern were interested in this kind of I guess promotion and support for developing properties like the one they just had rezoned. Can you help me understand how
it would work?
Would work. I mean, so the Smart Zone designation and the participants in the Smart Zone grouping would somehow promote and support development in this particular location because it's a part of the smart zone?
Correct. Yeah, they don't have to be contiguous parcels in order for us, since they are a part of the zone, as long as we use the funding from the capture in the district, it would apply. So business retention opportunities, I know that they do some infrastructure development, support financial, so essentially as long as we use the funds captured from the increase in the values of those properties in those districts, it could be in support of his current or future projects for any owners in that area.
I see.
Do we have anyone else? Ms. Jackson, say your hands. Okay.
So is there a time limit for Meridian Township to make a decision whether or not to participate or to address this invitation or not?
Yes, there is a time limit. So by the end of this year, we would have to proceed through all of the formal steps to be included in the LDFA, holding our own public hearings to allow for public comment, and then the City of Lansing and East Lansing would have to agree to accept us into the LDFA and a vote by resolution, I believe. Then we would also agree to the terms of the Smart Zone local finance plan. So we would get a review of the 22, I think it would be the year 22 plan for the Smart Zone, and as the three entities, we would agree to those terms. We'd also have an interlocal agreement between the entities. It is a lot of agreements, a lot of moving parts, and we have to have this done before the end of the year.
If it wasn't, I'm sorry. Can I go?
Go ahead.
If it wasn't done by the end of this year, could it be done next year? Or is this is your only chance, Meridian Township? You don't get another chance at this.
I do think that this is the term right now because they were doing the 5-year extension. I don't know if we can be added after the 5-year extension.
We were advised to do the 5-year extension and make the changes to the TIF district at the same time.
Okay.
Okay, I don't think one meeting is going to matter. I think we should all think about this and discuss it one more time at our next meeting, and get the wisdom of Mr. Oxford, who's very, very, very sharp on tips and tax capture.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll be on the next agenda for more discussion. Our last one is the mixed-use planned unit development for the change in the ordinance, update on the ordinance with mixed-use development.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. This is the first item I can say that I brought forward as one of the Planning Commission's goals for the year. They've established 4 goals at the beginning of the year, and this one was largely done before I got here, so I can't take credit for it. This is Planning Commission's subcommittee was formed at the end of last year to review the MUPUD ordinance and present a series of changes, and those are what you see in front of you this evening. I offer this every time I bring an ordinance forward, and I'm happy to go through it line by line, but I've never had a board or commission take me up on that, and I don't expect you will either. So I will go through the highlights briefly of what we are talking about this evening. First and foremost, they did want to include a formal definition of affordable housing, and so what we've used essentially is the HUD standard definition that is utilized for majority of funding opportunities at the state level, state and federal level. Those numbers occasionally change, but that is sort of the bare minimum that would be considered an affordable housing project. Next, the Planning Commission, the next major change I'd like to touch on is that the Meridian Mall property has been added to a potential area similar to Okemos downtown and downtown Hazlett as an area that could receive some additional density per acre subject to the board's sole discretion if a future redevelopment occurs. They were trying to look ahead at potential redevelopment around the mall, which, to be clear, it is simply the mall site. Good planning process to try and pre-establish something if so we're not trying to react in the future. So they at least understand as they're going forward, coming out of bankruptcy, potential for what could occur if the board, in their sole discretion, allowed it. So that change is being proposed by the Planning Commission. I will point out that the really big change relates to the amenities and how those are incorporated and being part of phasing and waivers as they relate directly to the amenities. The Planning Commission really fundamentally overhauled the amenity process, which is good. That's something that needs to be looked at on a regular basis as the market changes and things, new technologies emerge. And so that they've completely overhauled the amenity list and how those amenities are directly related now to waivers and phases and things of that nature. Specified that the parking shall not extend beyond the front line of the building, which essentially had become a practice in projects like this. So this will codify that. And lastly, and perhaps the one change I think everyone is most interested in, updating what is considered a major or minor amendment to specify that addition of residential units would be considered an amendment if you got to 50 residential units, and a reduction in the non-residential space by 25% would be considered a major amendment as well. So those are the highlights. There's a bunch of other little changes throughout. The Planning Commission, as I mentioned, spent a lot of time on this, and the information is in your packet from all those meetings, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
Excuse me. I would like to mention that this is an area that the Township Board has for a long time urged the Planning Commission to tackle. We are very, very appreciative of the fact that they have tackled this. I know it's been a tremendous amount of work. The amenities area is one of the areas that this board has for years questioned and wanted the Planning Commission to look carefully at, as well as the parking and some of the other things that Mr. Schmidt mentioned just now. There's a lot to discuss here, and I think it's also something that's going to be worthy of us having perhaps a joint meeting with the Planning Commission to talk about too at some point, because these are very important changes, and there may be others that the members of both board and commission would like to see before we go fully into it. But let's get our discussion going. Mr. Deschamps.
Thank you. And I think the rework of the amenities is a very good idea. And those that count as 3 all seem to make sense. They're either self-explanatory or they're detailed enough to figure out. You get down to 2 amenities, a green roof. I mean, that mean green shingles, or is that a term of art, a green roof? And I'm sure it is a term of art. But I would like to meet with the Planning Commission and have that full discussion. And I would like to see the amendment actually define what a green roof is and gray water recycling. Because if we're going to count that as 2 amenities, 2/3 of underground parking, and that's a pretty important amenity to include. Also like to talk about things like the low flow plumbing and waterless urinals and other ideas like that, and find out which of those, we've got some experts in the room now on this, are a standard part of any commercial build today anyway, and are we giving an amenity way for something that's going to be part of 95% or 99% of all new construction anyway. So I support the idea of a joint meeting with the Planning Commission to discuss this. The supervisor is absolutely correct. We struggle with this. We have for the past 5 years that I've been on the board. And so before we act on this, we should really have a sharing session with the Planning Commission, learn what they've learned along this process, help them to bring us up to speed on these amenities and understand why they valued them or ranked them as they have. I think it's a great idea.
Ms. Jackson.
A lot of work has gone into this, and it is obvious, and I commend the Planning Commission for the effort they put in and for the accomplishments they've made thus far in updating and improving our MUPUD. I think one of the most important things they did that Mr. Smith did not highlight was define mixed use as residential and non-residential as opposed to residential and commercial.
Yeah, they struck commercial throughout and went to the broader non-residential term. And that, apologies for not pointing out, that is just one of those things that comes naturally to me as a planner. So that's an excellent point to make, that they're trying to, the distinction is more between the residential use and everything else, as opposed to residential and commercial and office. And so they made a very concerted effort to simply go residential or non-residential throughout.
Okay. I think that was an important move.
Yes, that's a good, very excellent point. Mr. Supervisor, you are on mute, sir.
Thanks for reminding me. Clerk.
I want to agree with Treasurer DeShane and the supervisor on having a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and discussing this before we take any action on it and go further with it. I do have a question about affordable housing. Do you know how they came up with this definition that they have in here?
That is my definition, actually.
Okay.
That is the one
How did you come up with that? Okay, all right. Tell us about it.
That is essentially the basic definition that the Department of Housing and Urban Development uses to make a determination on affordability. So it's a two-part. It's actually technically a three-part definition. One, you have the household income piece, which is, at this point is 80% of the area median income. That number is established on an annual basis by HUD. 30% of the gross income is largely what is considered to be an affordable amount of your income to be spending on housing. And then third part of that, which a lot of places leave out, is the actual definition of housing costs, which includes utilities. Because although you may be spending 30% of your income on your mortgage, if you can't pay your utilities, it doesn't help you. So that is trying to encompass the entirety of what is the most basic level of affordability, which would be an 80% AMI is sort of the starting point for the majority of housing incentive programs at the state and federal level.
Thank you.
Ms. Wazowski.
I want to thank Director Schmidt. I know the Planning Commission's been working on this for a long time, but thank you and the Planning Commission. I know in developing or revising policy, it does take numerous conversations, numerous back and forth. So I would agree that a joint commission or meeting for them to be able to explain to us how they got to where they're at, because I'm sure that didn't just happen. And I would also support Treasurer DeShane's maybe a few more definitions. So to planners, a lot of these terms come natural, but for us non-planners maybe be helpful, especially when we're interpreting the ordinance going forward. So I agree there's been a significant amount of improvement, and I would like to have some conversations with the Planning Commission and you and your staff as well before going too much further.
All right, other board members? I mean, so we can talk today, we'll be talking about this for at least a couple of meetings, but including a joint meeting, but we can speak today. I mean, I like a lot of what they've done here. I think there's been a lot of great progress. Obviously, a lot of thought went into this. You've mentioned several of them. Mr. Schmidt's mentioned several of them, and it's an area that goes to the heart of what we all do here is elected representatives of this township. This item and the one before it are really what we're all about, getting at things like smart zones and how we do MUPUDs and what gets approved. Other thoughts? If not, we'll bring us back right away.
Thank you.
I'll try to set up that joint meeting.
Thank you. We'll work to set up that joint meeting.
Thank you. It brings us to comments from the public. We still have a few public out there. If you want, I'm not there to get a card. Just come on up and say who you are, your address, and you have 3 minutes, and we'll take it from there.
Jim Filipich again, and yes, I'm still residing at 5823 Wood Valley in Hazlet. And this is coming from the just when you thought you'd heard the last about the LFDA Smart Zone this evening. I think it'd be very prudent for this board and the township as a whole to seriously consider this opportunity. You've got just 2 pieces or 2 tracts of industrial zone land in the township. Dawn, we had our business down that neck of the woods from 84 to 98. Dawn is prime for redevelopment. There's not a lot of awful green space there to be built upon, but it's prime for development. Out in the industrial triangle where we are, there is more open space or whatever. And for those 5 or 6 of us that are out there in terms of entrepreneurial pursuits, when you're out there, you kind of look upon yourself as your outposts on Meridian's frontier. You're kind of looking around like, so where is everybody else? It's just a commuter thoroughfare. But the notion of a smart zone out there, I'm not going to say I know much about planning, whatever, but I'm not a fan of the 2017 master plan, but I am a student of its corresponding future land use map. And right across the street from us, you've got multiple parcels that are dubbed commercial. And I think if the township were to embark upon this smart zone for the industrial triangle and realized any measure of discernible success, I understand that the future land use map together with the master plan might be coming back around on the carousel for updating within the next year or so. So if you've got a demonstrated success on the south side, it may impact consideration in terms of what you can do on the north side. And again, that's just spoken from somebody out on the frontier. Oh, lastly, from the curbside looking in, I see Amber's box on the township org chart charged with 2 primary responsibilities, and I'll dub those A&R, attraction and retention. Her job is to attract new businesses to the township wherever possible, utilizing the means that she has at her disposal, and at the same time retain the existing base in the township. So I congratulate you so far. All right? Thanks again.
Thank you, and we don't dialogue with public comment, but I want to thank you for the outside view on it. It's very important to us. Okay, other public comment? If not, and we're ready to move on to other matters from the board members. I don't know if it's raining there, but it's pouring at my house. Nothing? All right. We need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
We moved and supported to adjourn. Is there any objection? Hearing none, we are adjourned, and we are adjourned at a fairly early time, 7:47. Thank you all. Thank you for members of the public who came, Mr. Filipich, et cetera, and the team, the robotics team. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you for that. Very important. It was tied.
Abundance of.
Usually ready to write down the report. He was running around here. I'm like, all right, I'm going to get you, Tucker. Eric's over there laughing. He got me on my arm right here. I'm like, oh, I'm getting all back in the back. I was flying around here and looking for her bare arm. I think it was my arm. He saw your scout and got home.
We have miscommunication. I spent this long so long. We came back in person in 2 weeks. We have an old picture of it.
I was looking at that saying, oh my gosh, I need to.
We need to update our picture.
I'm going to update our phone.
Good evening, I'm Elena Cugino. The July 20th Township Board meeting just adjourned. Here is the post-meeting report of what happened during the meeting. The board passed the Pathway Master Plan 2021 update in a 6-0 vote, which includes 10 new routes in Meridian Township. After some discussion, one firefighter paramedic will receive a sponsorship for a 16-month paramedic program after the board passed the sponsorship in a 6-0 vote. The chosen applicant will be required to work for the township after the program. Lastly, the board discussed the Smart Zone Local Development Finance Authority and asked for pros and cons about this opportunity to be brought to the next meeting. Tune in to the next Township Board meeting on August 3rd. If you have any questions or comments about Home TV's programming, please contact us at 517-349-1232 or visit us online at hometv.net. I'm Elena Cugino, and on behalf of all of us at Home TV, thanks for watching and have a great night.
I just was here to help out with the election.